Hey, what's going on, guys? Yugioh TCG here, back with another video, and today I thought I would just do a real quick, what I'm equally thinking plus what I would hope for a ban list. Hopefully comes up here very soon. Obviously, we've got some events coming up, and then, we kind of go into, like the last regional season before nationals. But yeah, I just thought I'd kind of just take a quick look at what I hope we kind of get here, maybe hopefully in the next week or so. Starting off with the band, I don't think anybody would be surprised, but I think Ibli has definitely got to go. I don't know how many sprite hits are truly deserved, but Ibli is definitely one of the ones that I just obviously prohibits the game the most. Requires an extra deck space to, out this, and, a lot of decks just don't necessarily have the space to add something like that, and, overall, I mean, it doesn't take away too much from like a deck's inboard, but it does obviously just allow your opponent to play. So getting rid of that I think is pretty good. And obviously in the same vein, Branded Expulsion, and now this is going to be, two parts with Konami. This is equally getting rid of something that's just pretty degenerate. You don't really have a chance to really respond to it. Plus, it just promotes them being able to sell their new secret rare extra deck monster, which does the exact same thing. So, it's a kind of win-win. Kind of still unfortunate for the player. And then finally for the band, Diabolos. I think this just really needs to go. I mean, being able to deck out your opponent, getting rid of, all the resources, and just looping a card out of the extra deck with the extra deck knowledge is, just pretty unfair at this point for, Kashtira. Overall the card's not too broken in most formats, but with, Kashtira, it unfortunately becomes a necessity to just kind of get rid of this. And it does obviously prevent a lot of the zone blocking that Kashtira can do. It doesn't obviously try to do most of the time. Moving on to the limited section, whether or not it's going to be this format or, the next ban list, looks like we're going to see Blaster come back. This is something that happened in the OCG. It'd be something that would be really good for Volcanics, so I could definitely see us getting that a little bit later to promote that set, but, if it comes off now, I definitely think that it wouldn't have too much of an impact overall. A little bit of a wish list, but Ronin, now with Sprite Elf Band, I think Ronin could possibly come back. It probably would bolster Sprite a little bit too much maybe for Konami's liking, but I would just like to be able to play Paleo again, so I hope it comes back, but realistically, probably not. For a lot of people, I know that they want this one back. TCG is the only format that Hardcore is not currently legal, so I know a lot of people would be really excited if they could be able to play that deck again, so bringing it back to one I don't think would be any issue. And then Unicorn, I think, is one of the other hits that Kashtira does deserve. It really just kind of limits the consistency, makes you play a little bit less optimized builds, and you feel a little bit more comfortable interacting with them at certain points if you know that they only have, one or so of each card. And in that same vein, I think Birth. Ultimately, I think Birth will probably end up being one that ends up being banned just because, being able to consistently revive a card, give you a normal summon of a level 7, it really just adds, I think, too much to the game. To kind of just continue it or allow its existence for too much longer. So I think, probably here pretty soon we'll probably see that go, but I think for now, and maybe limiting it is fine overall, but it definitely needs to have some sort of hit. It really just gives your opponent too much recursion, and even then, it kind of negates having the one unicorn, just because you can kind of get it back every turn, but overall I think both those to one doesn't destroy the deck too much, but it does obviously make it less consistent. Speaking of consistency hits, moving Runic Fountain to 1 does obviously hurt the Runic deck. It doesn't completely destroy it, but it does obviously make it very super susceptible to things like Cosmic Cyclone and just any form of removal. And this will just kind of cause Runic to rely a little bit more on adding it back from the graveyard if they need be, versus, just having a second one in deck. And then the last limit, again, another kind of wish list, is Colossus coming back. I don't think it would do too much to the meta at this point. Perhaps it does, but you know, even with like Pearly, it doesn't stop them from drawing 6. So overall, I don't think it's too big of a deal, and I think it would just be kind of fun to play at this point. For the semi-limit, not too much here, just kind of clearing out some things. I think we can be trusted with 2 Jack and 2 Suchi. I think that those would be completely fine to see back in the game. Eventually, I think they could go back to 3 at this point, but they tend to want to test a semi-limit before they give it back to unlimited, so only reason why I put that here and not just straight to unlimited. And again, another wish list, but they definitely seem like they're trying to promote a lot of dinosaurs, so, you know, bringing Miscellaneous back to 2, I think would be something we could probably expect to see either this set or closer to the release of Dune. Maybe it doesn't happen, but I would like to see it happen just to, you know, have a competitive dinosaur deck in the meta. And then finally for Unlimiteds, I forgot Substitute was even, brought off the ban list. It's not really going to do anything. I think even if you bring Ronin back, Substitute doesn't do too much, without anything like a mass driver. You're not really able to do too much. Maybe it, enables too much, but I also don't necessarily see Ronin coming back anyway, so I think Substitute is fine to go to 3. Gazelle also can go to 3, no reason to keep it where it's at. Playing 3 copies is fine. It has so many ways to search it out, get it in your hand anyway that, you're not hurting it too much just to give them back a few extra copies. Desires, this is really just kind of getting rid of a lot of this stuff on the semi-limit list. I think it's fine to go back to 3. I don't think Sword Soul is going to have too much of an impact on this upcoming meta. Ancient Fairy Dragon, with its errata being once per turn, I think bringing it back to 3 is totally fine. I don't know too many decks that are going to play more than, 1. And then finally, Recital Starling, same thing, deck has kind of been power crept at this point, so bringing it back to 3 I think is fine. Just kind of getting it off the ban list would be nice. But yeah, overall I think that's the kind of list I was looking at. This would probably be what I'd be really happy with in a lot of areas, but I do see a lot of these being realistic, primarily being like the Runic and the Kashtira hits. Like I said, I think Blaster might be a next ban list kind of thing, but maybe they bring it back a little bit early since, it is currently legal in the OCG. But yeah, I'd just be interested in see what y'all think down below, and I will see y'all next time.